The thing I had been struggling the most in my life is my finances. Just getting all my, just even being okay with my finances. I can only remember a few moments in my life that my finances were okay, in the sense that I could pay everything that I needed to and have even a little remaining for more. But the majority of my life, my finances has been a huge struggle. And I have to admit that I have never experienced what it feels like to be financial stable. I I don't know what that feels like to have. I've When people talk about like money just flowing in your life and you are at a point where, I don't know, you tap into that flow of abundance into your life. I have never experienced it. And me, I'm still working on my ability to receive. And it's crazy because it's all so much more deep seated than we think it is. I mentioned on previous videos how I did, I sat with ayahuasca in 2025, and I'm not gonna get too much into it, but it showed me how I still have a lot of unworthiness in me, or at least I still had a lot of unworthiness. And I always consider myself a super confident person. Like I don't know, I always believe like I'm worthy, like I'm worthy. But it's kind of like your subconscious playing against you, because even though you might think you're worthy, you have all your subconscious playing against you basically. Like I mentioned in this channel how as a kid I used to be bullied and I used to struggle with my sexuality, and I used to be like, I was born in a very homophobic country with, I don't know, like growing all this self-hatred within me. And this video this is not a pity party or anything. This is not me victimizing. It's just with the simple reason to say that sometimes the experiences we have in life, just what we experience as adults and the blocks we experience as adults, it's because it comes from like our subconscious. It's has been affected way more than we might think, and we have been developing all these limiting beliefs throughout our lives that are not even true to begin with. And and I'm starting to feel like in my reality that all that programming is going away, but I feel like it's still very present in my life right now. I'm still, I don't know, I'm still like receiving money, and just making money has been super hard. And I feel like it's about to get to the point where it's gonna change. But I felt called to make this video about, yeah, I just want to express my struggle with my finances and my self-worth. And yeah, I just felt called to make this video, and let's see where this goes. But yeah, I'm very aware that whatever you're not making it conscious is gonna drive your reality. And sometimes the reason we are blocked financially, or in love, or in relationships, uh, like the reasons are much more deep-seated than what we think. And this is exactly why we should never compare our path to anyone else. I remember like in the beginning of this year, like the end of last year, I went on a family vacation, and I remember my brother. I feel like I see where this is going. I see when, like, when we are with family. What's that saying says? Like, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family. There's a quote or a saying something like that, and to me, it's so true. Like, if you really think you're enlightened, or if you really, yeah, go spend a week with your family. But for the holidays, this, like in the beginning of the year, I want to spend time with my family. And that's the thing with your family. It always, I'm sure like everyone's family is different, but you tend to react, and you haven't seen them in a long time, and they still have in their minds an outdated, like, first belief about you, and then an outdated version of you, that you have done so much growth. But once you, and it's not their fault, that's just how they remember you and how they see you. And yeah, I feel sometimes, not sometimes, like all the times when I see my family again, I see an outdated version of me, or like I start to behave in ways that are not even me. Like I start to act out of character. Um, like I remember in this family vacation, my brother did something that it really made me react, and I was at a point that I was already doing a lot of meditation. I went to all these retreats. I overcame so much of myself, but still, like, I feel like family members are sometimes like, "Oh, you reacted. Oh, you haven't done much progress." And yeah, I remember he said something very that I didn't like, and I reacted to that. And he told me, "I don't know what you're doing with your meditation or whatever, but it's not working." And that's a thing that sometimes your family or people around you cannot understand, that we don't come here with you the same traumas, the same experiences in life, and even we don't have the same path. So it makes no sense to compare yourself or your journey or where you're at with other people. Let's use finances, for example. He's making, like, for example, he's making like good money, you could say, a good salary that, I don't know, it allows him and his family. Have a he already have a kid, um, but it allows them to have like a really nice life. But I never compare myself to his path, for example, because first of all, never had the same we don't have the same life experiences. And like me sitting with ayahuasca, it showed me that I had a lot to, how can I say this? Like, for example, I think if he would have made the effort, and I don't want to say effort because I'm sure, yeah, if you hadn't put the energy and the time doing all the stuff that I've been doing, like meditation, because I think he meditates too. And I don't think, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I think people should go a little more than just meditation. Like, I'm gonna use the example of plant medicine, but plant medicine really makes you go deep into, like, it really makes you go deep into becoming more self-aware and not projecting so much into the world. And people would say that it's a shortcut. Like, I don't see it as a shortcut. I think like healing can be different for everyone. Yoga is healing, meditation is healing, breath work is healing, ayahuasca is healing, psychedelics is healing. There's just so many different methods that you could heal yourself. Um, but yeah, probably if he had done all the things that I have been doing, the meditation, the two ayahuasca retreats, the meditation retreat, like week-long retreat, he would have probably achieved much more. Like his 3D reality probably would have reflected back to him the inner work he has been making, you know. But yeah, that doesn't mean that because my reality I'm still like overcoming so much and my reality hasn't yet like reflected all of that, doesn't mean that it's not doing the work, you know. We should never compare ourselves to anybody. We should do the things we need to do. Like people that say I'm just not a good meditator, or like, oh yeah, meditation is just too hard for me. Like, no, it was really hard for me too, and like some days it's really hard, you know. Sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's way harder, you know. Sometimes your mind it's much more active, but yeah, we should not compare ourselves to anyone. Yeah, I know, for example, for me, this is something I have been realizing more and more lately, but that's the thing. Healing can be different. For healing doesn't need to look like healing, you know. You don't need to. It's not necessarily that you heal yourself and you become this Buddha and you become like, for many people, like this doormat that everyone can like walk all over you, you know, and like that becomes another way of like your spiritual ego taking over. But for me, healing, time and time and time again, it showed me that, and this is gonna trigger a lot of people, I think, me saying this, but for my path specifically, it showed me that my family has been holding me back, you know. My healing journey specifically, and to me today is crystal clear how my family and me, like this relationship that I had with my family, I used to tell everyone to my parents, like nothing with like relationships or who I'm hooking up with, nothing like that. I never told anyone, like my parents, I never told them anything about that. But in the terms of my career, I used to call my mom and told her everything, like, oh, I'm doing this, and like I want to do this and this. And it became such a, and I'm not saying like this is the same for everyone. Everyone has like different paths. Everyone has different blogs. Everyone has different lives experiences. But in my case specifically, and I see other, like also other people that have the same issue and they're still, I want to say, stuck there, that they tell everything to their mom, and it becomes like this toxic codependency. But that's the thing, you can still love your family, but still choose to have healthy boundaries. You can still love them, but choose to have a life separate from them. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people need to understand that if you don't have boundaries, you could be your family or other relationships, they're only gonna drag you down, and you cannot save anyone. You cannot do extra inner work for other people. If they're not doing the work, there's nothing you can do, you know. No matter how much you want to share all that you have learned about and everything, like if they're not willing to do the work for themselves, there's nothing you can do. And that's just something you have to make peace with. I'm back. One of my favorite things is to get black coffee in the morning. I live for this. I don't know why I like it so much. Where were we? Codependency, family. Yeah, I know a lot of people that are still, and that's the thing too, like I feel like the people we attract, I feel we attract people with the same wounds or the same, many times the same places that we are in life. And yeah, After all of this, like, sorry, before all this, I remember I was attracting in my life a lot of people that were dealing with the same stuff. Kind of like, I mean, I know someone that in different ways, but kind of the same thing. He used to tell his mom everything about like his relationships, like the boys that he was seeing and everything. And one thing we need to understand, and this is going to trigger people probably, but everyone has their own bias. And this is why we need to choose ourselves and what we want and not just ask for the opinions of other people. I remember I used to have this conversation with someone, and we were talking about that. We were saying that we would only date people that would get along with our family. And the more I think about it, it's like, that's a level of self-abandonment, in my opinion. Because you're choosing a partner based on if your parents will like them or not. Which is kind of crazy, right? I don't know, I feel like the more healthy boundaries, and I feel like all of this is a huge opportunity for us to just choose ourselves. I feel like most of it is just problems with attachment. And this is not me saying like this is everyone's path, this is just my path specifically, and I see a lot of people that have the same issue, which is like this codependency or too much attachment with their family. And I feel like family sometimes it's just, I would even say most of the time, it's just temporary. Like we're young, we basically, how can I say this? Like we absorb all these behaviors from our parents, all these things that they haven't worked on. We make them seen, but this is not a, it doesn't always mean that we should all our life be close to our parents. Sometimes this is just temporary, and we learn our lessons and then we move on. With me, I have been getting signs, and just it has become so like crystal clear, the issue. And I just can't ignore it anymore. And I feel like our minds always wants to create reasons why we should stay in the familiar. In the familiar. Um, like, okay, they're not that bad. It could be worse. Like, yes, it could be worse, but it could be better. It could be better, and I don't know, like sometimes we are blocking ourselves from so much more that we can experience in our life because we are abandoning ourselves for other people. Like even last year, I remember, this is even hard to talk about, but all my plans for the future and the things I wanted to do, I postponed all of that because we were gonna have a family trip by the end of the year. So I kind of have to like change all my plans based on that so that my parents could be with all of us together. And it's just, and the thing is like, I feel like this happens for a lot of people, that I go on these vacations and I don't even feel good. Like on paper, on paper, it's beautiful. We're going to like this beautiful cabin in upstate New York, and it's gonna be snowing, and we're gonna ski one day, and it's like all these like beautiful. like on paper it's beautiful, you know, but in reality it's never like that. It's never like that. It's like I am saying abandoning myself because I am choosing to spend my time and my energy with people that are reflecting worst versions of me. And that's the thing. People talk about a lot about how when we, for example, when we timeline jump and we elevate our vibration and we start to attract better things in our life, the people that are not doing the work or that are not in the same frequency, and shouldn't be like a this is better, this is worse. It's just like a different frequency. Um, but people think that like once you elevate yourself and you start vibrating higher, that all those people would basically disappear from your life, and they would basically that you would basically not see them again, in a way, because they're kind of like you two are in two different timelines. But it's not completely true. Like we actually, once you decide to keep connections with them, you're just every time you're gonna see them, you lower your frequency, you know, because you have to like find like a middle ground, if that makes sense. So that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with like choosing to spend time with your family if you know, even if you know that they're not the best for you, you know. And even if you say like, oh, it could be worse, like I know they're not reflecting the best version of me, but it could be worse. There could be more, whatever. But everything you're saying yes to, you're saying no to other stuff, you know. And one of the main things that made me see for sure that basically my family is holding me back is the simple fact that they don't want my you know, they don't want me to heal myself. This will sound very crazy, but once I decided to quit my job in New York and go back to my parents' home and basically being supported by them financially, confirmation, the universe the universe was able, like, it's crazy to even say it, but you once you decide to heal yourself and you decide to go on your healing journey, which I explained many times in this channel, that it's not just your healing journey, it's basically your life, but the universe will find ways for you to keep healing and to keep doing the work and to release all those limiting beliefs and all those things that are holding you back, because this is not only for you, this is for everyone. That's the thing, like I feel people don't understand how deep it goes, because once you heal yourself, you're healing the world. You're not only healing yourself, you're healing everyone around you. You stop projecting. But anyways, my parents, I mean, they consider themselves very spiritual. They are kind of religious, but they know that like all their businesses magically starting to work really well, you know. Really hard to say, but yeah, I was grateful that they could support me in all the stuff I needed to do that year, taking care of my mental health. My mental health after New York was a mess, you know. I mentioned many times I went to 2 ayahuasca retreats, a meditation retreat. I was meditating every day. They didn't like it fully that I did ayahuasca, for example. The first time I was convincing to my parents like why I wanted to do it, And even though they were like they were doubting a little bit, um, my dad told me yes, which was more open-minded than I thought he would be. But then I felt called to do it again. And again, I didn't have the resources to pay for this, but they did. And I asked them like for my second time, and my dad said yes, and my mom sat me down, and she was like, "We're helping you until here. This is the last time." Like ayahuasca, but it's crazy to say this, but I know that after she said that, the universe didn't like that at all. I don't know how else to say it, and I know she felt it, but this is kind of like what we need to understand, and this is not me not being grateful for them for allowing me the support, you know, because that's the only thing they need to do. They only need to be receptive to the flow of the universe. There's nothing they're doing on the external that allows them to keeping this flow moving, you know. The only thing that they need to do is like not block it. Sorry, this is really hard to talk about. But that's the thing, it's not, this is not even my mom saying this, it's her ego, you know? It's her ego. Like, when your parents are blocking you from your healing, basically, it's not them. Like, it's their ego that is getting in the way. Sorry, this would sound so bad for many people, but hopefully I'm getting the message straight. But yeah, the crazy thing to me is that when I went to sit with ayahuasca more than 2 times, I had to deal with like generational karmic cycles, you know? Things that I don't want to say, like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy I get to do all of that, to do all that work and release whatever it's in my family, generational, like all the generational cycles, you know? This is like the darkness that is in my family. Like, and that's a very, like, the paradox, because my mom told me like I don't want you to do this anymore, you know, like she told me like this is the last time we're supporting you. Even though my dad told me like, yes, you can do a second time. And obviously like this is just me asking them to support me, and I'll, whenever I have the finances, like whenever I have the money to pay them back, I pay them back, obviously. But still, it's kind of like me asking for that support. Like, if I could have done many more times ayahuasca, I would have, you know? I feel like there's a lot of within me that needs to be clear out, you know? This is not me victimizing, it's just I have been through a lot since childhood. And so much that if I would have had the opportunity, I would have done sit with plant medicine more than those times. But those are the opportunities that I had. Anyways, I'm grateful I had those 2 retreats that I had. You know, I'm grateful that they say yes to support me on that. But at the same time, I am working like in more than 2 ceremonies. I have not. I entire ceremonies. I have work on family stuff, generational, karmic stuff. Like between my mom and my sister, between my grandpa and my uncle. You know, things that are like I don't want to say this, but like the darkness that has been lingering in my family. My grandma has an apartment in Uruguay, and I didn't want to spend money, so I asked her if I could be alone in her apartment, and she said yes. So I was like spending time there, and just by myself because I didn't want to be around family, you know, like I was like healing. I wanted to be time with myself. I was integrating, so I wanted to have time with myself, which was amazing, by the way. Um, but yeah, and then later my mom and my brother came to Uruguay, and we spent like maybe like 10 days together. And we were talking. I was talking with my mom, and I like just me and her, and I told her that my childhood was all survival, just that, and I'm just grateful that I experienced all of that, so I can now experience the opposite of that. And she really became really like a. This is hard for me to say it, but like she victimized herself when I said this, and she started crying, and she said, but we gave you everything. We gave you a nice house. We gave you all of this. And that's what I don't like. Like, I don't know if it happens to a lot of people too. And okay, I know it happens. When you say this, you give your experience and you say, okay, I had a really hard time in school. I had a really hard time even with them, you know. I mentioned in this video, I had an uncle. I mean, we see them like every week. He used to bully me heavily, you know, because of my sexuality and just. And I mentioned how he said that like he only bullied me because he cared for me. Let's not even go there. But anyway, my family was there. My family was present, and they never did anything. Um, and this is not me saying like, if I was like, my cousins, they had it way worse than me, you know? Like, I feel like their family is like a whole different monster, you know? I'm not comparing I know there's people that had worse families than mine, but whenever you say how you feel with your parents, they instantly like victimize themselves, and they say like, oh, but we gave you everything, you know? And she told me like, there's people that have way worse than you. There's people that don't even have food, and that's the thing. Like, I know that, you know. I know there's people that were born in situations that they had been through war, like in their childhood, and there's heavier stuff. But that doesn't negate the fact that like you also experience a lot of darkness, you know. And once you express this to your parents, they kind of dismiss all of this. They negated all of this. But yeah, and a few days after that, I remember we were having dinner with like me, my brother, his girlfriend, and my mom. And we were having, should I say, financial breakthroughs in the family, because I truly believe that like the universe doesn't. Let me just say it in like the most raw, honest way. None of like that part of my family. I feel like my sister did. She's the only one that did some work in trying to heal herself. She went to therapy. Okay, let's go there actually. And when I say this, like, I am the only one in my family at the moment that I was doing healing, you know, doing the inner work, doing the shadow work, actually doing the work. None of them in my family, like they were not doing, like my parents, like they think they're super spiritual, that they think they're evolved. They're not. They're still in their shadow. And they would, but they think they're like evolved or something, you know, and they think they're above. But anyway, but the financial breakthroughs that they were having, it's the universe that wanted to support me and my healing through them, because that was the only way that I could start healing my psyche, you know? Because whenever you choose yourself, the universe will give you the resources you need to heal yourself. Maybe it's through different people, but we were having a conversation and about like the financial breakthroughs that we were experiencing in my family. And by the way, like all the stuff that I was able to afford to do, this is money that comes from the universe that allows me to do all of this, you know. There's nothing there doing specifically like more work, more hard work that allows me to overcome this, you know, and like keep walking my path. But anyway, and then she was talking also that in college, whenever we needed to go to university, they had this like huge financial breakthrough. Basically, like they were super tight with money, and right when they needed it, like when they needed the money for us to keep studying, you know, because we were all studying in the U.S., the money came, basically. And this is why I also believe that like when we want something in our life, we should do it. Like we should go towards it, and the money will come. You know, it's not waiting to get the money and then apply for the stuff and then get that stuff. It's like go towards it, and the money will come. But yeah, she basically said something that basically is for the because of the Padre Pio or something that's why they got the financial breakthrough. And I told her like, no, it's like I basically like interrupted and I was like, no, it's because I'm taking my healing seriously. After I said that, I remember my brother said like, you're acting crazy right now, and that's the thing. It's a huge sign if you keep showing a version of you that it's not in your highest light. These people are not good for you. It doesn't matter if it's family. These people are not seeing you in your best light. They're seeing you as like if you're crazy. But yeah, besides me that took my healing journey seriously, my sister also, when her mental health was like at her worst, I would say, I cannot say it from personal experience because that's her story, but like a time that was really hard for her. I remember she asked my parents if she could go to therapy, and they said no. And just like years later, like when was that, like probably like 10 years later or 9 years later or even more, I asked to go on a healing retreat, and she said, this is the last time we're helping you with this. And she also didn't want me to become a facilitator to do plant medicine, you know, because I was like, okay, I'm very interested in this, so I want to do this. But like, your parents only support you whenever it's like something that they want. You know what I mean? If it's something like that, they don't want to support you. They only want to support you whenever it's like architecture or interior design or whatever. It's not too out there, you know. That they're gonna support you on that. With this, they're not gonna support you. But yeah, this became so clear to me, and even now, your parents do not want you to heal yourself. They don't want you to heal yourself. And I feel like if they don't do the work and if they don't overcome this shadow part of themselves, that shadow part of themselves, it's gonna play against you. It's gonna play against your growth and your expansion. And it's just being aware of this and it's not them. And it's not them necessarily wanting you not to succeed. It's their ego. Like it's their shadow that it's playing against you. But yeah, all of this, it hasn't been easy for me because I always thought that I would be super like close to my family, and I had so many ideas of how I wanted to, like, even if we talk about like, I really like, it's really hard to explain, but like I really wanted them to have like an amazing life, like a, just like experiences in life, you know, like an amazing house and all of this. And I wanted him to have like all this project if within my family. I even worked for like a huge project that it would be like to for my family, and I wanted to like make like this beautiful hotel like in the middle of nature and kind of like these cabins, and to be very ecological and like with beautiful pools and like kind of like a spa kind of place. And I made this, I spent months working on this project, and it until now it hasn't yet had a breakthrough yet, but it has nothing to do with the project. The project is really good. The park is beautiful. The like it's all beautiful, but how can I explain? Like if they are not doing the work, you know, if you like decide to do business, it could be family, it could be any like type of business with someone that if they're not doing the work, you are not going to. You can only go so far. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I always had like all these dreams to be with my family, all these trips that we would go here and we would stay in like a beautiful hotel. I had so many dreams about like renovating my parents' house and all of this, but like it has become so clear lately that you just have to focus on you and find your own way. And I know very clearly that this next journey in my life is not going to be with them. And I'm so okay if I am, like, if I'm the villain in the story, you know, like all these family members that they think that I'm evil or something because I basically decided to part ways with family members. I'm so okay with that, to be misunderstood in that way. And I feel like at the same time, like for example, everything that happened to me in New York, I'm not gonna get too much into that in this video. I feel like I already talked a lot about it, but it all comes from like all these things that I experienced in New York, these friends that were giving me weird energy, and I knew they were like talking behind my back and like gossip about me. I quit my job, I left that city, and then I went back to Paraguay. And I saw those same patterns. I feel like I opened my eyes. I mentioned how I had a big acid trip, like a high dose acid trip, and then all that mess happened, and I became really aware of those behaviors in my friend group back in that city. And then I left and I went back to Paraguay, and I saw the same behaviors, you know, running in my family. I was struggling, you know, I was struggling financially, and I had to ask my parents for money. I had my brother like telling me that he kind of called me like a thief because I was being supported by my family, you know, like basically like me asking for money, like a thief when I was struggling financially. We're talking about people that have the resources and they are still in lack, you know, like they are so selfish, you know. You're struggling and they do have the resources, but they kind of, you are basically family, like you are their family, but they're still like an aunt. She has so much money, you know, like this aunt had so much money, and she was like talking about my finances and talking with people behind my back how I was like, I don't know, it's just like these family members that don't even have empathy. But yeah, anyway, my point with all of this is that whatever's happening to you as an adult, that experience with me, like people gossiping about you, stabbing you in the back, talking behind your back, this is just like the aftermath, you know. You attracted these experiences, but it's coming from the root. It's always the root, your family. if you, like, let's use the example of astrology, that your family is your fourth house. Your fourth house, that's your inner world, like that's your roots. And your 10th house is your career, your reputation. And if you imagine it as the fourth house, the root, your family, that's the root of the tree. And the 10th house is the, like, your career, your reputation, what the fruits of your labor. That would be, those would be like the leaves of the tree, like the canopy. And whatever's not grounded here, whatever is not like in a good foundation, would be reflected in the canopy, in the leaves of the tree. And this is what happens with your family and with your upbringing. If you, this is why we need to deal with whatever happened in those early years of our lives, because that's what it's reflected in our reality now as an adult. Like what happened to me, like as an adult, living by myself in a different city, attracting all these people, that's just a reflection of your family patterns, you know, like those same behaviors, those same energies I was just opening, I just had my eyes open now, but it was in my family too, you know, that they were gossiping about you, they were talking behind your back. And it's kind of like a shock in the system, because I feel like, to me, that moment became, it was very clear. And it's even like that moment that kind of like my family was one of the reasons why that thing. It's crazy how, like, even you as an adult, you having 27 years old, 28 years old, how your family still, if you don't work on that, it's still gonna hold you back, you know? It's still gonna hold you back on your dreams, on the lives you really you really deserve. And this is why, like, taking all that same gossipy energy that was very present in my family, that they are like, even my siblings, my family, my mom, my dad, they are talking behind your back and don't want to be straightforward with you and don't want to tell you in your face. They're talking behind your back and they don't want to be straightforward and tell you how they really feel about you in your face. All like, but anyway, taking all that aside, even like me, for example, living in New York, going after my dreams, my career, I was always very unapologetic and very direct about the life I want to have. But I feel like even if I had, because I was feeling like I was about to have a career breakthrough when living in New York, I was feeling it. I kind of blocked myself because with all, like, I still had a lot of unworthiness to deal with, you know, like my inner, I was not able to receive, and I wouldn't be able to hold it. And it's so sad because we deserve, like, all of this, that all the blessings, you know, but we block ourselves. I feel like if I would have gotten like my blessings, I would have blocked it, because I still have so many of my, like, family, like these, like, shadow aspects of my family, of like, you should work really hard for what you want, and once you get it, you should do it, and it's a duty for you to, even, this is, for example, my dad, for example, he does all this stuff, basically like sacrificing himself for other people, and he thinks that everyone should do the same. And we think so differently. I wouldn't have been able to hold, like, imagine if I had a opportunity with, like, a job that I love but require me less work, less of my, I don't know, if it required me to not be so stressed all the time, so work really hard, and all these things that I was doing because I wanted to prove myself, you know. because deep down it comes from unworthiness. You not feeling worthy of having a relaxed life. And I'm not saying like a relaxed life like you shouldn't do anything, but like flow and ease and just to have it easy, you know, because we deserve that. We deserve to not have to struggle, you know, and like not people in my family, they don't know about this, you know. None of them, they all work really hard. It's all, this is the things we have to reprogram ourselves. That to me what became super clear whenever I went back to Paraguay. I first of all, like, to start with, I don't care if they think that I'm a failure, you know, if like I'm still going with like my healing is my priority, you know, because the rest, your career, everything else, the money you make, everything will come after, like, comes through your healing, you know. As you heal yourself, then the rest comes, you know, then the pieces fall back into place. Um, but yeah, I didn't care that they think that I'm a failure. But what I do not agree is that when people think that you're lazy because you still don't have a job, like a serious job yet, you know, because you're still working on some other stuff. And I still apply to, I never, for example, whenever I quit my job in New York as an architectural designer, I never again apply for another architecture or interior design job, ever. Like any architecture studio. I never wanted to do a 9 to 5 again. I would rather, I even applied to many hotels, you know, like whenever I moved to Europe, I applied to being like kind of like working the lobby, like more like away from technology, away from being like in programs, just doing lines, you know, more like being more present. Still was very hard to get a job. Um, but yeah, even like, but that's the thing, when people think that like you're lazy, you are putting a lot of work. Like I don't think people understand, like people that are not doing this, the shadow work, the inner work, they don't understand that it's a lot of work, you know, it's a lot of time that you put into that. And yeah, I remember my mom and my dad went to visit me in around in June this year. And my mom, I was talking with my mom. I took her to, and that's the thing too. I feel like 3 years ago, even like on paper, it sounds like a dream of mine, you know, my mom coming to Europe and I'm taking you to all these amazing places, which I did. And on paper, it sounds like a dream, you know, like, but in reality, it's not like that. It's not like that because, first of all, I don't feel well and I don't feel like myself around them. I didn't think it would come into here, but I guess we're talking about this. She was basically saying that I don't know, I feel like me and my sister, we were the only ones who got to the point where we needed to take time for our mental health, you know? That it got to the point where we really need to be like, okay, we need to do something about this, you know? That doesn't mean that my family, that they have good mental health. That doesn't mean that my mom, my dad, my brother, they have good mental health. And she was like saying how, like my mom was telling me how my grandpa, that's the thing, like it, it really bothers me how they do not want to open their eyes, you know? Like the older generations, like even my parents' generations, but also her parents, you know, and her grandparents, like they brush everything under the rug, you know? Everything was like, okay, we don't want to look at this, you know, like all this, the shadow aspects of themselves. Our generation usually is the one that are starting to heal all that they have not taken care of. And this is not like as victimizing it. It's just how it is. But anyways, but yeah, uh, but yeah, she was telling me how my grandpa, how he, even in his 90s, he was still working really hard, and he never had to, never needed a time to heal himself because he didn't need to. Oh, and this really triggered me. It really bothered me. This really bothered me because basically like patronizing my grandpa because he was really always like pushing himself and he was like a really hard worker. When at the same time, whenever I went on this ayahuasca retreat, I had to have an entire ceremony about him and my uncle, you know, especially my grandpa. And I'm not afraid to say this in this channel, but for example, one thing that runs in my family, in like this side of the family, for example, it's internalized homophobia. My grandpa, he's not alive anymore, but I remember in this ceremony, this was one of my hardest ceremony, and this was so difficult for me. But basically, there was like this kind of like this plumbing, like this drain with like really dirt water, you know, like black water. Kind of like a very, yeah, like drain, you know, like plumbing, like that stuff you don't want to look at. And I was like, in the beginning of the trip, I had a visual like, okay, we need to go there, fine, you know, let's go there. But I basically had to, this uncle that I mentioned, how he used to bully me a lot, like heavily, because of my sexuality, and how, I don't know, like he, as a kid, I was internalizing all of his darkness, you know, all of his projections, because that's his own projections onto me. I didn't know this. I was a kid, you know, I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. I didn't know, you know, you internalize all of this, like, but that's his darkness that he's projecting onto you. And I was able to see reality through his eyes. Like the life experiences that he had, I don't care about talking about this, you know, like I feel called to say this, but, and just looking at his family, it's like a super broken family. And even if in the future they get to see this video, I don't care, it's the reality, you know. They don't want to admit this to themselves, which I think is very dangerous. People that don't want to go through their traumas, you know, because there's trauma there, and they don't want to look at it. But I feel called to talk about this. But yeah, like hitting his wife and just like bullying me, just being a terrible person, basically. But after this ceremony, I was so much compassionate towards him because my grandpa, this is very hard to talk about, but he basically, we need to understand that at that time, especially in a country like Paraguay, when my uncle was like a teenager, when he was when he was young, he made him have sex with a hawker. It's kind of like pushing him to be straight. You know what I mean? And I had so much more compassion after about my uncle for all the things he did, because he's also been through so much, you know, like he has so much. I mean, he's a person that you meet him and you know all the darkness he has is pretty obvious. You can have a conversation and you can see it very clearly, all his stuff that he has never worked with. But yeah, this really bothered me because like my mom was the one who told me like, we're supporting you until here, no more of this, you know. She told me like, no more of this ayahuasca. At the same time, you are clearing generational trauma, you know. You are dealing with stuff from her dad, you know, that things that are, you're clearing like trauma that are benefiting not just her and the rest of my family members, but like even like people that has passed by, like that has passed to the other side. You're helping them on their karma. And my mom was basically like patronizing his like ability to work really hard and never needing to stop, and romanticize this like hard work. And I got really, really mad, and I told her like, but yeah, to me it's crazy how the ones that choose to heal themselves, then you're called the lazy one. Because you realize it's not a sustainable way to make money to be always in stress, in survival, always like, okay, I need to work really hard on this. My family, all their lives, they have been like super hard workers, you know, all of them super hard workers, and like in stress and like this and like doing more of this and having to, when in reality, if they have just choose in a in a perfect world, they would heal themselves and they would calm their nervous system, and money would come, you know, money would flow. But they have not healed their subconscious, you know. And this is the same reason that why you cannot make business with people that have not healed themselves, that are still operating in survival. You're gonna fall into that. And yeah, that's the thing. We also need to understand that all these beliefs we have about money, and all this way of moving through the world of like really working hard, and like I feel like at that time when I was living in New York, even if I have a career breakthrough, I wouldn't be able to hold it, because I still had the beliefs that like, oh no, I need to work really hard, and I need to prove myself, and I need to do all this, and it's also like a lot of validation coming from it. I need to make my parents proud, and I need to, all my family members, they're still operating from this. You still want to make your parents proud, and you want your family to, like, all this stuff about honoring your family. Please, like, do it for you, do it to prove yourself, but don't forget about proving other people. Forget about needing this validation from others, even if it's your family. That's your ego. Because you don't need to earn your self-worth. It's already yours. This is something I need to remind myself, that I don't need this like grand idea of this person that I need to become, or that this like dream version of me. I am already worthy, you know, as I am. Like, you are already beautiful. Of course, you are a work in progress, but there is nothing wrong with you, you know. You don't need to do all this work in order for you to receive all this, or you don't need to push yourself so hard so you can receive all of this. You already are worthy, and you already deserve ease in your life. You deserve to have flow in your life, abundance just flowing to you. All of this is a belief that, like, I feel like a lot of people have have from their parents, you know. I'm worthy if I have good grades. I am worthy if I have this job. I am worthy if I receive this salary. I am worthy. No, you're already worthy of receiving all of that, you know, receiving all the abundance. It's not that you need to do something to prove yourself and then you get that. So yeah, I'm gonna close out this video. I feel like so much came out. I didn't know where it was gonna go, but yeah, that's what I mean. I feel like our ability to receive and our ability to make money sometimes goes way deeper than just being like, oh, I am worthy of receiving. Like, sure, you're saying that, but sometimes your subconscious doesn't have so many other beliefs that are say otherwise. And yeah, I feel like we need to be very aware of the things in our life, the relationships, sometimes family, that are holding us back. And as simple as that, are like, yeah, whatever we're saying yes to, we're saying no to other stuff. And to remind ourselves that, I mean, I feel like I've always thought about my family, and I had a very delusional idea of my family. I feel like my parents on paper, like, it looks like a good family, you know. It looks like, what's that? Oh, a flight. It looks like a good family, and everyone thinks like, oh, your family is so good, and they are both married to each other still. But and I always thought, and I always said like, oh, I had a great childhood. I have a great family. But I was not seeing things how they were, you know. I was lying to myself because I didn't have, and there's so many things here that I'm not even getting into this video. But yeah, there's people that have a way worse upbringing than yours, but that doesn't take away that your upbringing was super difficult too, you know. And there's so much stuff that I didn't even get into like this video, but yes, it could be worse, but it could also be way better, you know. And it's up to us to be like, we want to stay in the same loop and kind of keep just stay in this cycle because we are afraid to speak our truth, or we want to choose different for ourselves. And yeah, so yeah, let me know in the comments if you are dealing with similar stuff, maybe if you struggle with your ability to receive and make money. I feel like that's a pretty common issue that a lot of people have. And yeah, I would love to know, and keep it up. Peace.